Thank you so much. We're here today with Joe Iemma, and we're here to talk about the changes in the rental space to the rental legislation.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
No worries, Joe. So there's been talk of this for quite a number of years. It's now come to fruition. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into what's happened?
Yeah, definitely. So there was an amendment bill of the residential tenancies introduced to Parliament on the 15th of October. Subsequently, it was passed by both houses on the 24th of October, which means that it's been approved and now it's just waiting on the governor giving the final instructions. So we'll get sort of dates when it all takes place, and there's different sort of things that need to be worked out around notice periods and stuff like that. Okay. But in essence, you're going to ask me, well, what's changed? You know, what's happening? You know, there's been I know the media, there's been a big sort of push, beat up in the media, but there's two main areas that are going to change. So firstly, termination notices.
Yes.
So no grounds termination notices are going to end. And I know people freak out about that and they think it's going to end. You can still give a tenant notice that's on a continuing agreement, but you just have to there'll be prescribed measures that...
Like a reason,
basically, and that will be prescribed. So a reason could be that the agreement's been breached. A reason could be that you want to sell the property.
Yes.
A reason could be that it needs significant renovation or demolition. It could also mean that, you know, a family or the landlord, family friend or family member or landlord wants to take possession of the property. So that will be all the reasons that you can still give the tenant notice. And to be quite candid with you, that's the only reason you would give a tenant notice anyway, you know. So I know there's a lot of hoo-ha, but the reality is that that's what happens every day, you know. People would like to believe that there's untoward, and look, don't get me wrong, it may happen in situations, but I know from our perspective, very little of our landlords, you know, want to terminate a tenant for no reason. But in saying that, you'll need to give a reason, and you'll need to actually supply proof of that reason to the tenant. And then also, once you've given a tenant that notice, there's going to be exclusion periods. So if the situation changes, then you may not be able to put a tenant in there for 6 months. So, you know, how is that all going to work? It's all a little bit up in the air, but they're the things that, you know, we're waiting confirmation.
It's basically to protect the tenant, even though in our demographic and on your watch, normally it doesn't change things because you're really not terminating tenancies unless there's an issue that they haven't done certain things or if the owner wants to sell, for example.
Exactly. And I think, you know, when I look at this and I think, oh, you know, why is this happening? I think anything that happens with legislation is a very reactive. It's very reactive. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And the knee-jerk reaction to this is that, you know, rents have gone up so much and potentially they believe that owners want to exit tenants so they can get new rent, higher rent and new tenants. So, you know, this is why this has been introduced. That's what I think at the end of the day. But in saying that, you know, when you do the sums and how much more rent you might get and the vacancy factor that you might have to have and the works you might have to do.
It's not commercial reality.
It's not. And look, 99% of our landlords think like that. You know, they look at the big picture. They've got a good tenant and who's looking after the place and paying the rent. The last thing you want is to have a vacancy factor where you go into the unknown, or you got to get a new tenant, and what will that tenant be like? So, you know, for me, I know when things change, people get really sort of, you know, uptight about it. People don't like change, but, you know, I've heard a lot of commentary about, landlords won't buy residential property for tenants. Like, at the end of the day, it's always a safe bet, you know, it stays passive income.
It's not going to change things market.
I don't believe so, but again, you know, we'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
I guess the other significant change is around pets.
Yes.
So, you know, you won't be able to say no to pets. You won't be able to advertise no pets. Potentially, you know, again, there will be reasons that an owner can say no. And those reasons
very valid.
Well, it could be, you know, that, you know, from what I can gather from what they've put out so far is that, you know, potentially, you know, someone wants to have, a big sized dog in a studio apartment, you know, that is not sort of conducive, unreasonable. So, you know, there'll be reasons like that, but in essence, you can't stop a tenant from having a pet. And once the tenant applies to have a pet, so this may be a sitting tenant who says, oh, I want to get a cat. The landlord would have 21 days to respond. And if they do respond and approve it, then there'll be a set of terms and conditions that come with that. And that could potentially be that they need to fumigate, they need to steam clean carpet.
So to protect the landlord.
It still protects the landlord as far as that's concerned. And I know a lot of landlords will say, oh, but what if the damage? Look, yes, we understand, and, we get that potentially sometimes there may be some damage or cleaning or wear and tear or whatever it may be. There is a bond in place, and again, some would say that, the bond is not enough to cover, but also landlord insurance as well, is there to cover situations like this. So, look, that's probably, that changes the dynamics, but again, it's a hard one. Tenants want to have pets. If they've got a family and a little, the children want to have a pet dog and things like that. And look, most of our landlords will only say no if they've had a bad experience in the past, and that, because otherwise everyone is quite reasonable as far as that's concerned. I think that we've already got a situation at the moment where you can only increase the rent once every 12 months.
That's standard.
That's pretty standard. And the rest is, well, they're probably the biggest changes that come in.
Doesn't sound too significant. It sounds like the media have talked it up a little bit more, but in reality, it's not going to change things greatly as long as it's the property is leased well and managed well, and then someone overseeing it in the right way.
And look, as I said, most tenants, again, 99% of tenants will do the right thing, and then they look after their properties, and I think having been able to live in a home and want to have a pet is sort of reasonable. I understand why people won't be happy with that, because they perceive that it can cause damage, but there's humans cause damage as well. And
I guess as an agent representing the landlord, we would be very diligent in doing regular inspections once a pet arrives to make sure there isn't. Because obviously, if the pet's causing damage and there's issues, that becomes a reason, contrary to the lease, to terminate the lease. So we'd be all over that.
Oh, definitely. Look, and as I said, it's sort of, it brings to light our job, making sure that, our ingoing condition reports are on point, our regular inspections are done during the year are on point as well. Look, as I said, we do sort of manage quite a lot of properties on the Northern Beaches, and the percentage of people that have pets, and I think it's because, but also because of the demographic that you spoke of, we have, probably 75% of our portfolio is apartments. And I think people, are going off to work every day, and sometimes it's not feasible to have a pet, in a unit all day locked up sort of thing. So people are very, they're very understanding of things like that as well. So, look, for me, I don't, I know I'd rather look at the positive aspects of sort of what they're trying to do as opposed to look at the negative, and I don't think it's going to affect our marketplace that much.
Excellent. Look, I think it all comes down to having it well managed, having it looked after by the agent, and make sure they're on top of things. But is there anything else?
That's pretty much it, from the legislation part of it. It's sort of, and as I said, we're just waiting on notice periods, because that's going to change. Like if you have a 6-month lease or a 12-month lease, there's a time that you have to give notice to the tenant. They're going to be different. So potentially if you've got a 6 months, it might be 30 days notice for a tenant. If you've got a 12-month lease, it might be 60 days notice. They're the things that haven't been ironed out as well as yet, that we're waiting to sort of hear back on as far as that's.
Well, as soon as we know all that information, we'll come to you with that. And if you've got any other tips that you need or any other insights into the real estate space, look myself up, and Joe are always happy to help.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.